All right, ladies and gentlemen, what does a U.S. Senator do when he is no longer a U.S. Senator? Well, we'll put that question, among others, to our next guest, former Republican Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, and now Senior Advisor to the Convention of States Project. Senator Tom Coburn joins us. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Good to talk to you. I asked you during the break, so I'll ask again. You're not missing Washington too much, are you?
No, I'm not. Actually, it's been real fun. My wife's had a little adjustment for me being home all the time. But other than that, it's been great. Got to see my grandkids. And
great.
I'm active on 3 different projects, and one of them is the Convention of the States, and another's trying to reform the FDA so we can get the drugs that everybody else in the world are getting, that everybody's getting approved outside of here, but not here. Well, and the other is to try to get real honesty in budgeting and talk about real numbers, which is really different than even what the House put out today, because they're not anywhere close to what we need to do to be able to fix our country.
All right. Well, I want to talk about a number of things. But what is the House and the Republicans in the House and eventually the Senate? What do they need to do to fix our country?
Well, if you look at what actually happened last year, we had a $480 billion cash deficit, but we had a $4.6 trillion accrued deficit. So our total deficit last year that we added to the debt of our kids was over $5 trillion. And nobody's even talking about that.
Yeah, well, that's certainly not good. So they need to get leaner and meaner, as they say.
Well, you've got to fix. If you've got to account for it properly, we're using generally accepted accounting principles before you can ever ask the American people to help solve the problem.
You also are talking about from an Oklahoma, from a state's point of view, to limit the scope and the power and the jurisdiction of the federal government, which I know is something you've always been concerned about, and so many millions of Americans are. And in the state of Oklahoma, you talk about Article 5 and the authority under Article 5. Explain what that is and how that could work in other states as well.
Well, our founders, I think they were just phenomenal. The more I study it, the more I read, the smarter and wiser I think they were. And in the Constitution, they recognized that at some point in time, the federal government would become too powerful. And so they gave the states and the people a way to limit that power. And let me just give you a couple examples of the all too powerful. Right now, over 50% of every state's budget is education. 60% of that is controlled by the federal government. The states have no say on it whatsoever. Except Thomas Jefferson said if the federal government was ever going to have any involvement in the education in the states, they'd have to pass a constitutional amendment to authorize it. Well, that hadn't been done. And so consequently, state legislators who want to have the best education they can for the kids are hamstrung by bureaucrats in Washington on 60% of their budget. Well, where'd that ever come from?
Yeah.
So that's just one example. Highways is another, where the federal government has decided it will take power away from the states, much different than what was promised to us in the Constitution.
By giving federal funds and then insisting that their directives be followed, or they take the funds away, right?
Except they're not federal funds. They're our funds.
Right.
We created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states.
True.
And so our founders created Article 5, whereas if 34 states decide that they want to come together to limit the power, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government, then they have the right to do that, and Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court can't stop it. And it's time we did that, because we are bankrupted as a nation, not because of what the states are doing, but because of what the federal government is doing.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, Senator, something that your former colleague said today, Dick Durbin. The Senate has put, Mitch McConnell's put the nomination or the vote on Loretta Lynch for Attorney General on hold until the order of bills is followed. And right now, the Democrats are filibustering a bill on sex trading because they don't like an anti-abortion provision in it. So Dick Durbin today said that he accused the Republicans of putting the president's Attorney General nominee, quote, in the back of the bus. Now, this is an obvious race reference because Loretta Lynch is black. How do you feel about a statement like that?
Oh, I got used to Dick Durbin's statements. He said them to me all the time. Dick is a nice man, but that's the kind of statement that isn't true. He knows it isn't true, but it's political and partisan. The problem in Washington is there's way too many people that have been there way too long with no real experience before they got there. And the conflict, the reason you don't get rid of $800 billion worth of grants every year coming to the federal government with strings attached to them is because people want to keep it that way so they can have a constituency that's dependent on them. Even though it doesn't fit within the framer's mind of what was constitutional or what is appropriate, smart, or cost-effective. So, I would expect that from Dick Durbin.
And you got it. Hey, Senator, always great to...
But there's Republicans that'll say the same thing. Don't let me... It's not partisan.
I got you.
What the American people got to understand is people are in Washington.
Too long.
They shouldn't go to Washington until they've had 30 years of real-life experience.
As you did as a doctor. Senator, got to go. Thank you, sir. Congressman Lee Zeldin's next. Don't go away.